strongly recommend that we try and move this forward with the memorandum of understanding being adopted because in terms of reference, because they've done a lot of the work already.
So you're making a formal motion?
Well,
at this stage?
I'm just putting it out there that I'm throwing my support that way.
Okay.
Yeah. The discussion's just started.
Councilor Morris?
A couple of questions. On your comment about the increased budget of 18.5, is that assuming you're going to continue weekly garbage pickup in November and December?
That's assuming, yes, the garbage collection remains as is, and that we increase the yard waste or yard waste food scraps combined collection as we promised was the start date. So the idea being, I'm saying it's conservative, that maybe we don't see any garbage volume reductions. I mean, we will, just I'm saying we don't know how much. So let's just assume that service is there, and if we need to meet the other service level, the June food scraps change, then well, let's look at what the cost might be. If we do see some savings, I think we should just call that gravy for now, and really focus on what's the change, and let's evaluate, how can we really change service levels to meet this reality.
But I guess from a dollars and cents of a budget perspective, and we're already way too high, you're looking at an increased budget of 18.5, which is roughly half a percentage point.
Yes.
So if we were wanting to keep the budget down, then that we could suggest that it go to bi-weekly to see what happens in November and December.
It's always a possibility. I mean, it's
I'm just thinking the number of people that maybe put out a half can. Just because it's the week, and they would just put out a full can once every 2 weeks.
Time will tell. That's the thing. We don't know. It's so speculative. It's. I think it would be probably well, a little bit tricky on the budget side if we were to assume that it won't be an expense, and then if it does become an expense because of something unforeseen or in reality, that we could be in a tough position. So I think it's good to assume that we'll just be recognizing that we honestly don't know how things are going to change. So let's just assume that we need to do something more to meet that new change in pickup collection, and as I've said, evaluate, and that's going to be a key thing, is looking how the change in collection system is, what the reality is at the curb, and how we might respond to that to be efficient. So it's really going to be a matter of how.
So how easy is it between now and the end of March to actually keep a tally of how many of the cans we only have full every week?
I'll have to talk to the contractor. It's something they do keep an eye on it. I don't think we're going to get some. We'll get maybe some numerical information, but I think most of the information will be some qualitative responses from Bowen Waste on what type of things are happening and changes are happening.
And my other question had to do with the terms of reference. The concept is good, and I'm quite happy to approve them in principle, but they need some work. Like, for example, we usually put in some information on decision making, decision by consensus, and also the composition. It just says it will consist of up to 8 members. It doesn't say appointed by council. There's just a few, and it's not clear the mandate that they're advising council on. Develop a solid waste bylaw. I guess it's a given that it would come to council for discussion. Develop and implement a solid waste management plan. Does that come to council for review? So there's some formatting and some clarification issues, but the general concept of what they're going to be working towards is good. So I could support the terms of reference in principle, and therefore proceeding to advertise to get committee members. But I couldn't approve them in the state they're in.
Is there a possibility that we, in concert with the seeking members, that we make the changes and bring the terms back with the changes and have potential members on hand and deal with that all at once in the next meeting? Is that something we can do to?
Well, we've got to advertise, and there's a standard timeline. So I think the two things we need to do today would be to approve the terms of reference in principle and direct staff to advertise for members.
think
and
that's.
come back with a,
Does anybody know what the timeline is or for putting that notice out to potential members?
next Friday's paper. 2 weeks after that.
Anybody else need a copy of this?
So it's 2 weeks after publication in the newspaper?
We'll work out the date.
Do we do two? Or one, just one?
Well, it's normally good to advertise in 2 editions of the paper. Or no.
So there's your timeline. Well, I have another question. There's no reference in here, as I see it, that I thought the whole idea was that we were going to cut, the costs were actually going to go down for waste collection, specifically because we don't have to take it off the island as often to the transfer station. Am I missing something in here?
Well, I think eventually that would be a safe thing to assume. I think because it's transitional, I mean, maybe that will work out. I mean, it's something I think we need to really test. I mean, it's something we're being forced into by Metro Vancouver. We need to take food scraps out of the waste stream.
I understand.
It's something we all know that. I think as you move along and we get our program organized, I mean, we've had a contract that's been rolled over for years and years. 2013 is going to be filing a new contract. So I think it's a time to just really assess this carefully and make some good investigation into what the program is now, what the changes are going to be like, and let's look at that. I think at the end of the year, to assume that immediately that everything's going to work out, so that we're going to see the reductions, and just like this is maybe a little unrealistic. And there could be some issues with the transition, because it's a transitional year. That there just may be some unforeseen things that might impact the budget. So I'm saying for the 2012 year, let's just be cautious about this. Let's not assume that's too much. But I think in the long term, yes, I think we're going to see some reductions in the service to fund the service, and I think you'll see some fewer trips going off island in the long run. It's my concern is the 2012 year being fairly volatile in terms of changes and things happening. It's my opinion. I don't think we should assume that that's going to be meaning an immediate reduction in costs.
And then there was one other thing that sort of impacts matters that are in front of council now, and one of them is that I saw somewhere that I think you mentioned something about not burning.
Right.
Was that in the? Anyway, we have come before, or in the Solid Waste and Resource Management Advisory Committee, I think there was mention of not burning. And what I'm wondering is, there's 2 applications before council at present for rezoning, including Twin Islands and J&E Backhaul. And that involves dealing with solid waste management. Both of them want to do that. It seems to me that there is a way of lessening our costs, speaking from the municipalities side of the coin, that our cost basis should come down if there is competing bids on handling solid waste. And also with the less trips off the island, it seems to me that's another cost saving for our regular garbage pickup. And I don't see that in your.
Sorry.
Instead, well, I see an increase in the cost. And I just wonder, is this,
Well, I think the idea is that in the short term, in the last part of 2012, when we're trying out this new service, that there might be a short-term blip in costs as we react to that and we take on something new and do something differently. And there's all those unknown things that come along with it. And I think it's good to be conservative as we move through next year and the years beyond. I mean, this Solid Waste Resource Management Advisory Committee, they've got a mandate from now until the end of 2013, and the intent is to, the end of the day, we're going to have a new contract for our solid waste program here. We're going to have some research and understanding of what options do we have and which ones are going to be feasible for Bowen Island. So this committee they're going to be actively working and looking at things that we can do on island and looking at the options, and that would be something that we would, over the next year and a half, taking these things to council and getting some feedback and some things moving forward on which way we want to go. So I think that's definitely a big part of this committee is understanding what is out here on the island, what resources do we have, what can we use to keep things on island and handle things on island. And even aside from that, we're even looking at the garbage that actually will end up still going to the landfill, but looking at ways where we can decrease the volume of that. So let's decrease the volume on island and then take those smaller number of trips off island rather than taking the relatively bulky
well, that's the point
containers of garbage off. Yeah, so we're looking at all those as options and starting to bring all those things. Zero Waste Bowen's done a lot of work in a number of different areas, and part of it is looking at all these different aspects, and we're going to be coming that back with. I mean, this is I'd say the first of a number of significant changes that are going to happen with our solid waste program. And as I say, I'm cautionary about there might be an immediate increase in costs associated with just us responding to changes in service level, but in no way do I think it's a long-term thing. I think it's more just being cautionary with as we kind of wade into this uncertainty. There's always some money that's tied to that.
any councillors add anything further?
This ultimately is a revenue neutral to the municipality. The cost is collected through decals.
It's a combination of parcel tax and decal fees. So and that's one thing that's back in November we were looking at maybe getting rid of decals altogether or changing the rates and maybe attributing it more to the general parcel taxes, and those things are still going to be looked at as part of the committee. Will be taking that and we'll be developing that as again, thinking 2012 is a transitional year. It's very difficult to start changing rates and those sorts of things when we're embarking on some big things here. So let's just step.
It's one of those things which end up now on our desk, and I know that a tremendous work went in that already, and the people behind it I know, and I fully respect their expertise and sincerity. So I sense Councillor Stone's sympathy for the project. I'm personally in full support. How much of an urgency is there to have a motion today?
Well, it's more really the timeline to get the committee members going. I think every week that the members are not able to move forward and we can't get the educational program started, it's going to be making it more stressful at that June 4th date.
The urgency is to get the committee going, to get the educational process.
That's correct, yes.
So that since we are in a whatever transition anyway, I would be in favor of it, to deal with it today, and then just see it as a transitional year. Maybe in a year, if need arises, we will modify or whatever. But not to do it right now would be probably more harm than moving forward.